Hello. Let's see if we can get this going. Okay, so today we are just getting on and doing a nice little Q&A for our new well-being certificate program. And so I'm going to start out by chatting with you a little bit. Hi, Gwen. So glad you're here. um, Chatting with you a little bit about this certificate program, but please feel free to put any questions that you have in the comments. I've got my team, Tracy and Maddie, here helping me field your questions so that we can make sure to answer all that we have. So I'm going to start with just a quick overview of the program, which will hopefully answer a couple questions, and then field one or two that have already come in with people that can't be on here with us live but sent in their questions ahead of time. So you can find all of the information for the well-being certificate on our website at larksong.com/wellbeing-certificate. And if you are on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, I can put that down in the ticker down in the bottom. If you're here, Austin, can you throw the link up on Instagram for everybody, if you wouldn't mind? The well-being certificate came out of this story where all of our certified coach training programs have been based in positive psychology research, which focuses on the science of well-being since their infancy, since 2014 when we started those programs. And the research around well-being is advancing rapidly, spreading rapidly, and we're just learning more and more and more. We're also finding out all the things we don't know about well-being. What we do know so far is that there are 7 evidence-based facets to well-being in a person. And what we're finding out more and more are what the facets are within multiple dimensions of a person, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the 7 facets in a person of well-being are positive emotion, engagement, or what some people sometimes call flow, relationships, meaning, achievement, mindfulness, and embodiment. So there are 7 of them. And at Larksong, we call these facets of well-being the PERMA plus me approach to well-being. There are also lots of different dimensions of well-being that those 7 facets touch, like a transcendent dimension that is around spirit and soul. There's an intellectual or psychological dimension in your mind and heart. There's the emotional dimension, relational dimension. There's sociocultural dimensions. There are physical dimensions that are about both our bodies and how they experience well-being, and also how we experience well-being within a natural landscape and what that means for how we interact with the planet around us. So those are the things that the well-being certificate is going to cover. The reason we developed it is because we first looked at how do we develop well-being in children. So I was at a conference, an international conference back in 2016, and kind of the father of positive education, his name's Sir Anthony Seldon, asked a question, and he said, what in one word, what do you want most for yourself and your children, just out of life, if you could distill it down into one word? And I've stolen this question and asked it many, many places over the last seven years to thousands of people, and nearly everybody has a similar answer. Everybody wants joy and fulfillment and happiness and flourishing, sometimes peace, sometimes love, that sort of thing, for themselves and the people that they're closest to. And so what we found is that even though this is those 7 facets of well-being, or this flourishing that is comprised from these 7 facets of well-being, even though that's what people want most for themselves and the people that they love out of life, most people don't know how to get it. So they think that they might arrive at it by like sheer luck or trial and error, or even more sadly, they think that it's only reserved for like the highly privileged or the few. And that's just not true based on the research and everything that we're finding about both individual and collective flourishing. So initially, we built a curriculum, a program for children, 5 to 10 years old. So as they are kind of, most of them are kind of verbal at that point, and moving forward, we could instill in them kind of the building blocks of life purpose literacy and well-being from a young age. This is what all the research and the leaders in the field were saying was the most important thing to do, was to get these well-being practices instilled in children at a younger and younger age. But as we developed that program and built those out into schools in Zambia, here in Marion, Indiana, we found that actually it wasn't just the kids that needed it. It was the parents and the teachers and also the employers that really needed to understand well-being, because if the models in these children's life weren't getting it and had never experienced it, then there wasn't the kind of systemic support that was needed to sustain well-being moving forward. So we've piloted the well-being certificate with multiple people. The preschool, Westminster Preschool's employees, we've piloted parts of it with, we've also piloted the program as a whole in its kind of beta form with social workers at Marion Public School for the last 2 years. And so now we're really excited to release this program to the public starting here in August. So it's a 2-weekend program. The first 2 weekends are August 11th and 12th and September 15th and 16th. You do need to do both weekends. So August 11th and 12th is part one, and September 15th and 16th is part 2. You can enroll, get all those details on our website, but we also have creative pricing options so that we're sure that well-being remains accessible, and that we increase equity in this field as well. And we have scholarship options for anyone living in Grant County because of a partnership with the United Way of Grant County. So please jump on. Our scholarship deadline is this Friday, July 28th. And the enrollment deadline is next Friday, August 4th, because we start on the 11th. So here's what it looks like. You will come. There will be about 14 other participants in your training cohort. I will be facilitating and leading the training both days. We'll have a couple of assistants on hand to care for you as you move through the training program. It will be from 8 to 5 on Friday and 8 to 5 on Saturday, Eastern Standard Time. And essentially, we'll be spending about half a day looking at each of these well-being facets from both an evidence-based, kind of what you might traditionally expect a teaching environment to look like, where I share a good amount of content with you. Then we'll have some interviews and stories where you can see that particular facet being applied and what that looks like. You'll practice both kind of mini prescriptive well-being practices around that facet, as well as a little bit deeper practice to see the impact on you. And then you'll enter into a time of reflection around that facet of well-being so that you can really practically think through, how will this work based on my own motivation, commitment, and fit? How is this going to work for me and the people that I can influence and partner with as we, in an effort to move toward more collective flourishing? And that's really the hope and the goal here, to multiply what we know works so that people can get what they want most out of life, and they don't have to try so hard. They don't have to wonder if it's going to work or not, or anything like that. So that is the hope. And we'll be looking at, we'll be moving through things backwards. So we'll start on Friday, and Friday morning, we'll kind of do an introduction to well-being and assessment. We'll introduce you to all the different kinds of assessments that you can use, as well as how you might be able to create your own for the spaces and people that you most want to influence with with this information and these practices. And then we'll enter into embodiment as the first facet. We'll get done with that on day 1, and then day 2 we'll move into mindfulness and achievement. Mindfulness in the morning, achievement in the afternoon. Then you'll have about 4 hours. After the first weekend, there's about 4 hours of online content that you can move through at your own pace. These are a few more assessments, some audio recordings like podcast style, some video recordings, and then a couple of articles. But really just about 4 hours of work that in a month, so think like 1 hour a week, that you can dedicate toward continuing like momentum and holding yourself accountable in your own learning around this. Then we'll come back together on September 15th and move through the last 4 facets. So we'll start with meaning, then relationships, engagement, and then end with positive emotion. Okay, couple questions that have come in. Number 1, and please feel free to leave questions in the chat. I can answer them as we move along, because I'm planning to be on here for about 15 more minutes to answer any questions if there are some. The first question that came through is, do I have to attend both weekends? Yes, to get the well-being certificate, you do need to attend both weekends, both part 1 and part 2, plus those 4 online hours are what come together to make the entire certificate program. Another question that's come through is, can I do this as a Lark Song certified coach? Do I already have this from the coach training program? No, you do not have this from the coach training program. You can do this program in addition to your Lark Song certified coach training, whether you're currently in training in the program, which we've made sure that you can do both, whether you're currently in training in the program, you can add this on, and it gives you even more hours in your professional development training. Or if you've already become a Lark Song certified coach, you can do this as continuing coaching education or continuing professional development. It will be almost entirely new content, but it will supplement what you learned in the coach training program very, very well. If you're one of our coaches, it'll inform how to become even more effective and generate and create maybe some of your own coaching tools that can help move people toward flourishing. So those are a couple questions that have already come in. What else? Do we have anything else, Maddie and Tracy? Yet? Not just yet. Okay. Welcome, Johnny and Z. Good to see you on here too. So I just got back from the International Positive Psychology Association World Congress, and every time I go to an international conference like that, I'm consistently surprised by how incredible the programming that we're doing at Lark Song is compared to a lot that's offered around the world, even at like top-notch universities and corporations and things like that. And so I was again impressed by that and excited that we can offer it in this way. The cohorts are about 15 people big. Okay, and some other questions are, how might a person use the certificate practically after they've completed the program? That's a great question. So we're really hoping that, anybody can enroll in this Wellbeing Certificate program, but we're really hoping that people like parents, employers, leaders, even like community leaders, even if you don't have a positional leadership role, if you find yourself in a position of influence, or if you find yourself in a position of being able to be a catalyst for moving people somewhere, like away from the current reality and into something better, that's who we want in this certificate program. So practically what you'll be able to do afterwards is you'll be able to build in rhythms and rituals into your own life, into meetings, into your family's daily life, into trainings, retreats, events, that you are leading or influencing or a part of, that will move us toward collective flourishing together. So practically, you'll have all of these tools in your tool belt, but you'll also have all of this information. And you can either just use the tools in your tool belt, or you can take those tools along with the information that you've gained and really creatively apply that to your company's culture, your family environment, or even just your day-to-day practices without it being more work for you, your loved ones, your coworkers. It doesn't have to be more work. It's just working smarter toward collective flourishing. And so as a result, it actually starts alleviating a lot of pressure and fear and anxiety in our interactions together, to have this information and understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what would work better as we move toward collective flourishing and personal well-being. And yeah, so that, I hope, answers that first one. What kinds of results can people expect once they've completed the program over time? Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, so generally, what happens is people decide that there's one facet of well-being that they really are most wanting and willing to work on, maybe two, and they really lean into that for, say, 3 to 6 months, and notice a great increase in their well-being, even just from focusing on those 1 or 2 facets of well-being. And then once they've worked on that particular facet, they'll shift into another one that they're more wanting and willing to work on. So say, in general, a lot of people want to work on embodiment and relationships when they first start this certificate program. And so they'll work on that for a couple months and then see pretty incredible improvement, but they'll also at that point have built certain habits around that facet of well-being, so they don't have to work as hard at it. And then they'll shift into maybe focusing on meaning and achievement and see the results coming from that. How has the well-being certificate program material impacted Lark Song staff? Oh my gosh. In all the ways. We do things so differently, even than we did 5 years ago. So the way we start meetings, the way we end meetings, the way that we consider the best about each other. We also sometimes know exactly what well-being facet each other are working on and can help support and hold each other accountable around that. And we can kind of see where a well-being facet might be lacking a little bit as well, and see if anybody needs any engagement or intervention around that. So mostly it's impacted us in our relationships, the kind of language we use with each other. Our morale is always very high. The rapport that we have with each other is very good. And we can constantly create these different rhythms in how we interact with each other that we know will impact our collective well-being positively. What resources and tools are provided to participants during and after the program to help them integrate well-being practices into their lives and work? Oh, you'll get a whole bunch. So most of the tools that we give to you won't be proprietary. You'll be able to share them. You'll be able to brand them with your own logo or with your own your own visual identity. But you'll get apps, you'll get worksheets, you'll get booklets, you'll get access to books and recordings and videos that you will have access to, but you'll also be able to share access to all of those things with any people that are important to you or any people that you have influence over. One thing that was really impacting to me after I left higher ed and moved into this field around well-being education and professional coaching is just the extreme generosity of the professionals within the field. And so I try to continue to be generous with what we have, and not stingy around taking credit or restricting access. Because if our real goal, our real vision at Lark Song is to courageously co-create a more fulfilled and flourishing world. And if that is true, then it means that you might be able to reach some people that I can't reach. And so I want you to have everything in your toolkit that you would want or like to have, and really easy access to that, so that it doesn't limit how far this work can go. Are there any specific prerequisites or qualifications required to join the Wellbeing Certificate program? The only prerequisite or qualification is that you have to be over 18 years old, 18 years old or older. You don't need any educational prerequisites. You don't need any other certification qualifications. You don't even need any particular qualifications around financial status or anything like that. So the Wellbeing Certificate program is $750 to move. Like, that's how much it costs. However, we have scholarship programs that can cover that in full or partially. And we also have creative pricing options if you're thinking, man, I'd really love to do this. I just talked to a really good friend today who should have known better, honestly. And she said, oh, I really want to do that. But I just didn't have the money right now. I said, are you kidding me? You know how we do things here. So anyway, yeah, money should never be the reason that you don't engage at Lark Song. So definitely shoot us an email, or just fill out the enrollment form and say, how much you can commit to, or if you need an exploration call to talk through creative pricing, or if you need a scholarship, and we'll figure it out. How else does the program address diversity and inclusion, particularly in light of the disparities and inequities in accessing well-being services for certain populations? That's an excellent question. So one thing that we really try to do in our well-being certificate is center and highlight diverse voices, not just perspectives. Okay, so there will be a diverse range of perspectives within the cohort itself, and a diverse range of experiences. But we really want to center diverse voices within the well-being and positive psychology, positive education fields, so that you're hearing from not just academics, not just white folks, not just male folks, not just able-bodied folks, but really making sure that all of the voices that are brought in, so quotes, sources, assessments, art that we use, things like that, are all considered from a perspective of making sure not just that, oh, this is a diverse range of selections here, but really, who's the best at doing this and where are they doing it? And for example, and making sure that that person or those people are the resources and the voices that you're hearing from, even if it's harder to find them. So for example, there is some incredible work for collective flourishing and well-being coming out of South Africa and Ghana right now. And it is very difficult to find if you're looking on ResearchGate or Googling or something else. But that work started even before some of the more modern positive psychology research did. And so we'll be highlighting that. So we start even at this foundational level and say, what voices are we listening to? Are those voices decolonized? Are they not? Is this perspective of well-being one that will profit a particular person or group over another? If it is, then we need to dig into and really understand what, where that's coming from, what that's about, before we share that with anybody. So it does start in the theoretical framework and the information that we share with you, but then we also design our alliance to make sure that we're being culturally intelligent and sensitive, and we have a lot of options for making your bodies comfortable, different learning styles and abilities. The one thing that is difficult at our Lark Song space from an accessibility perspective is that the bathrooms are downstairs. So if mobility is a challenge for you, then you would just need to talk with us about that ahead of time. And we have some neighboring businesses with bathrooms on the first floors that are willing to partner with us to make sure that everyone's taken care of. Okay, one of the questions that's coming through here is, what are some of the gaps that will continue to remain if we don't take steps toward well-being education? Okay, I think that you're asking what are some disparities and inequities in access that would happen if we don't take some steps around that. So, okay, great. If we don't take steps around, I'm going to shift this question a little bit just to make it clear. So, what we're asking is, if we're not intentional about diversity and inclusion when we are educating people about well-being, then will we just continue to polish a turd, essentially? Like, will we just continue to not have well-being for all? And that is what's going to happen. So if the gaps remain, then collective flourishing won't happen. And even beyond that, individual flourishing will be incredibly limited. So if we only take a perspective on like navel gazing, like, look at me, I'm so amazing and my well-being is the most important. Like, if that's where we stop, then it actually does a lot of harm to us and the people around us. Our well-being, as well as the well-being of everyone that's connected to us, is mutual. And so if we don't address the inequities and disparities that are currently running rampant in most professional spaces, and definitely in the wellness industry, in coaching and in well-being education, then we're basically just polishing a turd. And we're not gonna make any significant progress. We'll also mostly focus our research, our education, and our perspective of what flourishing can look like and what well-being for humanity, how it can be measured on the industrialized north of the world and the most colonized nations. And that won't work. So we got to do something about it, and that's what we're trying to do. If there are any other, we're at 6 o'clock, so if there are any other questions that you have, we'll leave these recordings on our social platforms. Feel free to continue to ask questions in the comments. We'll moderate those and respond to those, but I hope this was helpful in introducing you a little bit more to our certificate program and answering your questions around it. Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, whether it was here live or afterwards. We appreciate your support immensely. Thanks.